Let me just start with a word of sympathy, I think, from all of us to the people of our region affected by the flood and by slips. And of course, it's climate change pointing us more urgently to mitigation and to adaptation. So in a way, nature's giving us an extra push tonight to engage with action and considering carefully what will have the greatest impact for the energy that we put into it. So a quick word about the purpose of the Hui tonight. It's to review what the forum is doing and to look at the growing points, especially for anyone with any spare capacity to consider where to channel it. And also, as we go through the various aspects of forum work, don't forget good old shoulder tapping, because lots of New Zealanders are worried about climate change, and some might be grateful for a tap on the shoulder with a gentle invitation to help with all of the work in front of us. So we also, as well as looking at our own projects, we'll take a look at a project that Wakatu is proposing, the suggestion of a climatorium. Christina will give us a quick overview of what's going on in the groups. Alongside that group work, we continue to work at strengthening our relationship with iwi and with our sister organisations like the Nature Conservancy, Businesses for Climate Action, and the New Zealand Association for Environmental Education. So over to Christina. We are very happy to welcome Christina back from your time in the US and Ireland, and we missed you. We're glad to see your face on the screen at least. So over to you, Christina, to tell us what's happening in the groups.
Kia ora, everyone. I haven't met all of you before, but I look forward to meeting you in person at some point. I'm the forum's volunteer coordinator. And I wanted to use these couple of minutes to talk about what's going on in the forum this month, because there's a lot of activity happening in September. First off, with the local elections coming up, there'll be a number of Meet the Candidate online events in Tasman. So there'll be one focused on the mayoral candidates and then one for each of the wards. And the dates and times have been set, but there's more information on the website if you're looking to join along. NELSOST is going to have a Nelson candidate event, and the forum is also co-hosting a Nelson mayoral candidate meeting on September 20th at Founders Park. And that's with the Nelson Environmental Center, the Brook Waimarama Sanctuary, and Forest and Bird. Also in September, on the evening of September 14th, Marlene and I will be hosting an online meeting about urban farming and food resilience, and anybody who's interested in those topics is welcome to join. Then on the 17th, September 17th, David Bartle and other forum members have been working on an event called Sustainable Mapua on the morning of that Saturday. And please come along if you're in that area to support the forum or learn about a number of sustainability-based businesses and initiatives. Also on the 17th, there's a Repair Cafe event at the Habitat Hub in Te Whananui. There's still more, lots going on in September. So on the 18th, one of our youth representatives, Nate Wilborn, is running a beach cleanup in Te Whananui. And then on Saturday, September 23rd, John Paul and the Society of Culture Group has set up a diversity training with Multicultural Nelson Tasman called Increase Your Cultural Intelligence. It's a free day-long workshop. We're asking for a small amount of koha that will donate back to Multicultural Nelson Tasman. There's still spots free to register and available, so please join us for this really important training. And lastly, in September, as if that's not enough, there's loads of events for the forum. At the end of the month, on Friday the 30th, Kate, Malcolm, and the forum's transport group are planning a forum booth around cycling at the Positive Aging Expo in Richmond. And if you're able to volunteer to help at the booth that day, please reach out to me and let me know. I'll put my email address in the chat. So in addition to all of those events going on this month, there's plenty of other ongoing project work across the forum. We're beginning to build a relationship with Mahua 2040, a sustainability and adaptation-based forum in Mahua, Golden Bay. The Transport Group and Yokal Upson are working on plans for a series of public events to engage the community on future transport strategies. And the social marketing project is making great progress, which we'll hear about in a little bit. And that's just some of the activity going on. There's lots of other group activities and projects. Details for everything I've mentioned, I know that's a lot, will be on the website. And if it's not already, you can reach out to me or just reach out to me directly if you have any questions or want to get involved in anything or see how you can participate or get involved. My inbox is always open. And as always, if I can support you in any way, please reach out, and thank you for all of your mahi.
Thank you very much, Christina. The forum is a pretty vibrant place at this time, with really a lot happening here. Now, earlier this year, Chris Wheatley started talking about social marketing, a topic which was totally foreign to me. And since then, thanks to Chris, I've learned a great deal more about it and feel truly excited by the project that Chris is about to describe to you. It has seemed important to me that to involve everyone at this relatively early stage in the development of the project. So over to Chris to tell us about it.
Thanks very much, Joanna, and hello everyone. If I share my screen, I've got a PowerPoint presentation ready, so if we go with that, hopefully. You see the screen?
Yes.
We'll just put it full screen. There we go. Okay. Right. So what I'm going to do is just talk through where we are with this project, which sort of started earlier this year, thinking that we need to go beyond the converted in the climate forum with a sort of behavior change and through a social marketing approach, which was sort of new to Joanna. It's also new to me. I'm by no means an expert in this topic, but it's something that we felt was badly needed if we're going to meet our carbon emission targets, because it's not just something for government and business, but for all of us to get involved with. We have been engaging with some social marketing experts here in New Zealand, and the big message from them is this is very complex, it's difficult, it's a long-term effort and needs careful planning and preparation. So although we sort of started this sort of about February, March time, really it's been gestating for quite a while now. We've been sort of investigating how best to move forwards. And what we've sort of spent the last maybe 3 months looking at is a similar UK initiative that's called Take the Jump, where they've actually done a lot of the work that we thought we would have to do. And so it's been a real sort of positive thing for us that we've been able to make contact with them and have quite a few interactions now with this team in the UK. And they've basically, based on solid evidence, have identified 6 behavior shifts that people, individuals, households, families can take that will reduce emissions the most. It's based on a global study where has an urban bias. We can say it's a UK bias because that's where it's moving forward fastest now. But it has an engaging open source design. It's very positive in the way it's framed and socially inclusive. So we've had a very positive impression of it. And I suppose our question has been, can we adopt and adapt this program, this movement, as they call it, for our case here in New Zealand? And so what I'm going to do now is just to give you some of the PowerPoint slides that they've developed about their program, so we can see what it entails, what it's built around, and what it's suggested. What are these behaviour changes that they're promoting in the UK? And as you can see, it's a very they've done a lot of design work on this. A focus on the overall less stuff but more joy. So it's trying to reduce consumption. There's a big correlation between reduced consumption and reduced emissions, but that in no way is that seen as a sort of a sacrifice, but trying to make it a positive change. So it's not so much a campaign, but a movement, a new citizens movement that's going in the UK. You'll see these sort of visuals, the graphics and images that they've developed, which reflect the UK demographic. And so that's something we need to work on here in New Zealand. So the goal being a world of less stuff and more joy, but based on science. And so where this comes from is a study that was commissioned by a group called C40 Cities. So this is a global sort of organization grouping of 40 major cities around the world, which Auckland is one, which is carried out by University of Leeds and the Arup Consulting Group, which came out with a report called The Future of Urban Consumption in a 1.5 degree World. And that identified what changes in behavior are needed to make the biggest impact on emissions, to reduce our emissions the most. And those behavior changes have been put into this JUMP campaign or movement now, which is a direct response to those findings. Okay, so it's supposed to be a workable alternative to a consumerist society, and it's something that we have to move to within the next decade, according to what the science says. Well, less than that now, by 2030. So there's a degree of urgency around this. Needed to a 2/3 reduction in the impact of consumption by those of us who are living comfortably. And so the words in the sort of G20 countries within this 10-year time frame. Governments and industry, business are obviously extremely important in this, but citizens and communities also have a role to play. And they identified 6 clear shifts that are needed. Since then, there's been another report come out this year that they've commissioned, which shows that although government and industry, commerce have the most responsibility, but citizens can influence about, so they say, 25 to 27% of the emission savings that are needed to avoid ecological meltdown. So whereas the government and business are responsible for 3/4, we as citizens can have influence over about 1/4 of it, and that's a very important. So we can make a difference, and our efforts are particularly important over this next decade. And within the sort of citizens and communities, it's the higher income groups that need to take bigger and faster action, because the higher income groups produce more emissions than lower income groups. So they've established or identified 5 foundations, and I just want to spend a bit of time on that before we get to the actual shifts in behavior, because the shifts themselves are quite radical. And so the first of these foundations is that trying is enough, so just start. In other words, don't expect that, there's no expectation that people will make 6 shifts immediately in all the way. That just do what you can when you can, and sort of build from that start, from that foundation. So it's rather a nuanced approach, I think, rather than coming out and saying we all have to do this straight away. and that no more us and them. We all do what we can. Some of us do more than others, but everyone does what they can. That it should be a joyous process. There's a lot of positives about it, and we'll identify those in another slide a bit later. And the fourth one is very important: the same access but different responsibility. In other words, it should be inclusive. Everybody, all our different communities. So Pakeha, Maori, Pacifica, our immigrant communities, refugee communities, everyone should have access to this. But some of us have greater responsibility to reduce our emissions than others, because our emissions are higher. And so that's I think a very important distinction there. And that, you know, making these changes will change things. It will make a difference. Right. So these are what the 6 shifts entail. So one, and I'll take a bit of time to work through these, because there's basically some simple messages, but there's some nuance under each of these messages. So the first one, which is to end clutter. In other words, don't change your smartphone every couple of years. Try and keep products for, especially electronic products, for at least 7 years. Consider buying refurbished or second-hand devices. Buy something that's repairable, so you don't have to chuck it out and get a new one and in 2 or 3 years' time. So there's some objectives there that we should try to reduce the amount of consumption of these devices. Travel fresh. Okay, which is a difficult one. In the UK, they're saying no personal vehicles. In other words, get rid of the car. Here, that's maybe a bit too radical, a bit too different, but we could try to minimize our car use as much as possible. And that fits with the active transport strategies that our councils have been producing over the last year or so. So, you know, walking, biking, taking the bus where we can. So trying to, incentivize those behaviors. Okay, the next one, eat green. So this is around a plant-based diet, and not just a plant-based diet, but try to reduce the amount of waste, eat everything, and eat healthy portions. Don't overeat. So that's we all know the effects of the livestock meat consumption on emissions. So a plant-based diet is another one of these changes that there should be worked towards. But again, it's not, there's no expectation that from tomorrow everybody just eats green, but we start maybe a few days a week, or cutting out some meat from some meals, but try to make the progress that we can as we can. Dress retro, which is 3 new items of clothing per year. In other words, try to move away from fast fashion. Look for brands that ensure quality and durability, rather than buying so frequently. Checking out op shops for purchases, which is, there's quite a culture around that here, so we can build on that. And seeing what we can develop around local tailors and dressmakers, craftspeople, and so on in our fashion industry. Okay, and holiday local. Again, this is around flying mainly. So in the UK, they're saying one short haul flight every 3 years, one long haul flight every 8 years. So again, in New Zealand, that's rather difficult. We don't have the options of trains like they do in the UK, but we should try to holiday local as much as possible, travel by bus, by ferry, and reduce our flights as much as possible if we're going to reduce emissions. And the 6th one is change the system, which links back to policies, to government and industry again. And this can be so much as moving to greener energy suppliers, green, more ethical investments and pension plans, reducing our energy consumption at home, home insulation, and so on. So there's a lot of changes there that we can make. So those are the 6 big shifts. And so basically around reducing consumption, they are saying that consumption is one of the C's that they're trying to reduce, but there's a lot of other words beginning with C that we can focus on instead, around community and culture and creativity, crafts, collaboration, and so on. And so those are the things that they're working on with this movement, to try with a lot of digital communities as well. There's a lot of focus on sharing information of groups of people working to share information, to encourage, to incentivize people through community. And yeah, I'm gonna jump one there. Yeah, that in the UK they've started up a lot of community groups around workplaces, societies, sports groups, and so on, that are working together again with this digital approach, but also a local approach of groups, to what they call buddy groups, to help each other, support each other in making these changes. So what makes the jump different? Okay, it's providing support for people who want to make these changes, going beyond the green movement. So it's not just for environmentalists. For, say, in the UK, the environmental people environmentally aware are about 13% of the population. So they're trying to move way beyond that to get the 50 or 60% who are aware there's an issue but haven't made any changes yet to their lifestyle. And there's probably a hardcore of 15% or so who you would never get to change. But to get that group in the middle who are not activists but are open to change but don't know how to do it or haven't been incentivized so far. So it's not involving politicians, not involving business itself, but it's a grassroots, ground up movement, not asking for money or data. It's something we can all do. It's no trouble. It's the right thing at the right time. Right, so those are messages they're getting across, and it's a societal shift, not just a behavior change. Right, so that's there. You see there's websites, there's a lot of focus on social media, a lot of support through these groups on social media. And if you sign up to it, the idea is to sign up for a month or 3 months or 6 months. And if you do that, you'll start getting emails and invitations to join some of these groups to support you in that journey. Okay, so what we've done in the last sort of 3 months or so, we've had meetings over Zoom and exchanges of emails with the Jump team in the UK. They're very open to us using and adapting their resources. They may well be able to help us to do this adaptation. There's no IP issues. It's all open source tools, the images, all the materials they've developed. We're providing material feedback on some of their draft materials, which are still under development. And through an expert in social marketing that we engaged here in New Zealand, Tracy Bridges, she organized for the Jump to make a presentation via webinar to the Australia-New Zealand Social Marketing Network, and that happened last week. And that was a very positive reception to that. So we're very encouraged by the fact that these social marketing professionals are positive about the methodology and the approach that this Jump team has taken. And so that's a sort of a positive reinforcement for us. However, we have identified some adaptations that we need for New Zealand culture and context around the messaging, as I mentioned a couple of times earlier with some of these shifts, and also the design and the visuals to better reflect New Zealand's demographics and culture. especially with Mari and Pacifica involved. So where do we go from here? I think we're at a stage where we need to make a decision on, is this the way we're going forward? Does the Climate Forum endorse that we're going to move forward with adapting this take the jump methodology, this approach, rather than striking out on our own? And I think it's important that we get that endorsement and that consensus. If that's the way we go, then we can move to develop an action plan to get things going here. We already started to look at what adaptations we need. That will involve some redesign of these materials and resources, and we'll need some funding to do that. And we already have some limited amount within the forum, but we'll need to generate some more funding. And then with a launch and a pilot of that in the Nelson Tasman region, through what they call ambassadors that they can help us to train, finding some what they call buddy groups or local groups to support each other in making these behavior shifts, and setting up the websites and social media with a New Zealand sort of perspective rather than using the UK ones. And I think on a personal level, the one comment I have is that our interaction with the people from the jump, well, with especially this one guy, Tom Bailey, who's the sort of shaker and mover that we've interacted with, has been extremely positive. There's very good vibes, and I think we can look forward to a very good relationship with them if we go down this route. Right, so I think the idea is that if we can go into some breakout groups, and if you could have just a discussion about what you think is positive, what excites you about the jump, what concerns, if any, do you have? And do you agree that we should proceed to adopt and implement this with appropriate modifications for our case here in Nelson Tasman in New Zealand? And I think it's important that we come out of this meeting today, this hui today, with hopefully with agreement to proceed on this. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Chris. That was excellent. And now Marlene is going to divide us into breakout groups to discuss those 3 questions. What excites you? Any reservations? You happy with us going ahead? And we will have, I think, 10 minutes to talk about it and 10 minutes to talk all together about it. So Marlene, could you break us up, please?
Yes, yeah.
Right, okay.
All right. Yeah. You're on mute.
Here we go.
Yes, please. Okay, here we are back again, and we have a few minutes to exchange remarks. So if you would like to say something about what your group arrived at, make sure you unmute yourself. And actually it might be helpful if you go down to the bottom of the screen and have a look at what is it, reactions, is it? Yes, reactions, and put up your hand.
Like that. So
You're right.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, so while I look for, there are 2 screens to look at. And okay, oh, will it? Oh, John Paul.
I'll go quickly if you're happy. There wasn't in my group. I just, I think that one of the questions, the main question was really about scale. Well, the two main questions. One of them was about scale, whether we, you know, are we looking at something that goes nationally, or something, something that starts locally first, perhaps, and then goes nationally? And also, whether are we the first region to be using the jump, or connecting with it? Are there any other projects that are similar that are happening around New Zealand at the moment? So I think those are the two main areas that we were discussing. If there's anything else, let me know.
I did come across a group in the far north, Carbon Neutral Trust New Zealand, that seems to be using it at the moment. Christina and then Sharon.
Oh yeah, our group like overall was really supportive of taking on the jump campaign and adapting it to New Zealand. But similar to John Paul, one of the things that came up for us was whether we should just go nationally from the off and not kind of use up time on a local campaign, and how we would do that and what it could look like.
Okay, Sharon, then Gemma.
Mine was a thumbs up rather than a hands up, just to say that Jean-Paul had faithfully, reported on our group.
Excellent. Thank you, Sharon. Gemma.
Well, yes. Sorry? Did I hear somebody ask me something?
No, you're right.
No.
Go ahead.
So Matthias had a really great point. So yes, the support is there because we need to create action, and we need to create profile. But Matthias had a really great point, and I'm not sure if he's a psychologist, but he was Matthias, do you want to share rather than me paraphrase your points, because I thought what you said was really good and worthwhile sharing.
Well, it was just a simple observation that this is going to be a social marketing campaign, so therefore it needs to have social marketing features, and there's influencers around and there's people around that really do this well, and there's somehow instilled some sort of curiosity or something, what's in it for me kind of thing, why do I want to join this? And there's some psychology behind this which I don't understand much about, but I didn't really know where it was in the jump campaign that wants people to join. Like what is really in it for them? I mean, saving a lot of things is not really attractive, even though it sounds like, oh, it's all fun and that, but I mean, we would have done it if it was all fun for the last 40 years. So in other words, we need to really use something amazing, something that people want to join, and people join all sorts of crappy things, as you know. They believe in totally absurd pseudoscience, and it makes them feel special, and there's all these things about it, and if you want to play that game, we need probably have that hook into people's minds, and more than just phrases of things that we want to do and save this and do that, because we've tried that for 50 years.
Thank you, Matthias. Barbara Robson. Unmute.
Thank you. Yes, just to segue on from that point, there was a question in our group about the metrics or feedback to see actually how it's been going off in the UK in terms of if the strategy is actually working. So that was one question. Another point was made that perhaps everything was a bit busy and there was needed to have it more simply, fewer graphics perhaps in the first stage, and keep it really, really simple. And the third point was when we were clarifying the Eat Green box or making it more relevant to New Zealand, that there would be an emphasis only on seasonal and locally produced, of course. So those were 3 points, but there may be other additions from people in our group. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. I took note of those points. Thank you. Any other comments? Let me just scan and check, because we'd like to get to a final question. Okay, so I have, and probably Oh, Bruno. Okay, last comment from Bruno.
Yes, I thought about this after when the group had finished. I'd like to see some New Zealand icons in there, like, trees, help plant trees, something that will grab New Zealanders in a positive way, and save our biodiversity or restore our wetlands, or something in there that has quite a unique Kiwi flavour.
Yes, we agree with that, and we're starting to look at how to accomplish that. Nicer still, we may get some help from NCC with actually doing that. So thanks for that comment, Bruno. So we would like to get some sense from the forum of whether you're comfortable with our going ahead with we're moving moderately fast on this project. So we'd like to get some sense of whether the people in the forum approve of moving ahead. We welcome input at any point along the way, and the input that you've given this evening has been noted, and we'll incorporate that in our discussions. So could you give us a thumbs up if you're happy with us moving ahead on it? And can we just, is there any thumbs down?
No.
No. Okay. We'll note if you're. Oh dear, I've lost the images. Yes. Okay. I've got the images back. Thanks. Could you give a thumbs up if you're happy with our moving ahead with it? Can you see down at the bottom where you have reactions, and you can give a thumbs up, and let us note if there are a significant number of people who are not, just give a signal like this. Yeah, that's
just
probably
go
easier.
down. Why don't we just tick the green box if we like it?
Well, that's all right.
Easy. And there's there's a cross there too.
All right, we can read that, and we will note the various comments and reservations. Okay, I think we have a great deal. Oh, Marie Lindea, that's very nice. That looks kind of celebratory. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, a few people clearly have reservations, and we hope that you will feel free to communicate those to us, because they may be valuable comments. All right. We do need to move on to the next bit of our forum, which is the budget. Thank you, Chris. And thanks everybody for your participation in all of that. Over to Michael, who is going to give us an overview of how we propose to spend the forum's money in the coming year.
Marlene, are you able to put up the budget? Is that something you can do? That might be beyond my technical competence. Fantastic. So kia ora, everybody. The budget that you see here has been finalised and approved by the leadership group, and it has been input into our financial system with the Tasman Environmental Trust. But there are still a few final issues to resolve around how much money we are carrying forward from last year for projects funded by the NCC. But that said, the budget that you see here is what we expect to spend this year. The purpose of tonight's discussion is to show how much funding we have, both this year's grants and unspent funding from last year, that we have approval to carry forward. The budget can be divided into 4 sections. New funding expected in the 22-23 financial year. Carryover funding from from last financial year, 21-22. That's the revenue side, or the funding side, the income side. The expenditure budget is divided into two as well. Expenses budget to maintain the capability of the Nelson Tasman Climate Forum. I'll talk about these things in a moment, and discretionary budget items. So dealing with these in turn, new funding expected in the 22-23 financial year. We have agreements with the Nelson City Council for $102,300 and in Tasman Environmental Trust for $20,000. In addition, we have our organisation did not spend all of the funding available to it in the last financial year. Primarily, this is unspent project funding, and the reasons for this have been around limitations on activity caused by COVID lockdowns and movement restrictions. But more recently, and this is the good news, we have put in place systems to bring forth, discuss, and where appropriate, fund projects that are meeting the goals of the Climate Forum. There is now confidence that we'll be able to undertake a range of work that will advance the objectives of the Climate Forum and allow us to equip the funding that we have received. We have a finance committee to monitor our financial performance and position that meets monthly as well, to check to make sure that everything's okay. Talking about the funding, unspent funding that's carried forward, in total we had $33,500 that was estimated as unspent last financial year. NCC grant money of $9,000 was unspent and related to unspent project funding. This has been allocated to projects and will be spent early this financial year. Some Nelson Tasman climate funds from donations and the like are unspent. That's $5,942. But these have been allocated to a social marketing campaign. And I think it's important to note that of that $5,942, $5,000 came specifically to fund our social marketing campaign last year. That was a single donation. We have lottery funding of $4,600 for Tasman-based projects, which was unspent at 30th of June, but has been allocated to projects, and including the Mapua project that David Bartle's working on, and $14,000 of Rata Foundation funding remains unspent. We look at the expenses budget to maintain the capability of the Nelson Tasman Climate Forum. This includes the budget to pay our staff, that budget's $105,300, the cost for administrative support from TET, communication costs, and sums that we're committed to spend on projects. Nelson Tasman Climate Forum and Lotteries, and Nelson City Council and Lotteries Board. They're listed in black type in the budget document. In fact, they're all listed in black type now, sorry. I should have checked my notes against the revised budget document that I knew Marlene was going to use, but we still have discretion over how the project money is to be spent, but we need to allocate at least these amounts to project work, as these amounts have been committed to in our funding agreements with the Nelson City Council and the Lotteries Board. The discretionary budget items, these are items which have been suggested based on activities that we've undertaken previously and are open to debate within the leadership group. Mostly the costs of HUI, the communication strategy, and venue hire. Marlene will discuss these a little bit more in a bit more detail next. The budget also, and this is the part I wanted to just note, the budget also includes a contingency amount of $9,000. Given the uncertain nature of the future funding and the commitments we have to pay staff and other costs into the future, it is prudent to have some funding uncommitted early in the financial year. This will give us the funds we need to make changes to the way we operate if expected future funding does not eventuate. So it's about taking a prudent approach to our budget to make sure that we've got the ability, to use an expression I've used before when talking about not-for-profits like ours, to soft land the organisation if our funding doesn't come through. Not that I think that that's likely to happen, but I guess it's part of the conservative nature of being an accountant. The structure of the forum and the cost to run it are more or less fixed this financial year. We have the processes in place to seek proposals for spending of project funding to achieve the aims of the forum. We also have a budget reserved to fund structural changes as necessary if future funding is not found. and we have to change the way we operate. So essentially, I'm comfortable with the budget that was approved by the Leadership Forum, but that's a sort of overview. Marlene was now going to talk specific, Marlene and perhaps Christina, we're going to talk about some of the specific items that we have that relate to getting relate to getting things done within the forum, like venues and catering and stuff like that, so that people understand what that money is to be used for. So over to you, Marlene, or I'm happy to answer questions if people have got any.
Thank you, Michael. And yes, so I just would like to present you the all the budget lines in blue, in fact, that were relevant to the members. So so that are the venue expenses that we could, I mean, as a forum take for the group. So we've got here 500, but we've got also Tasman District Council that has promised us to support up to 2,000 of venue costs. So that's also not included in the budget, but that's also there. So just to let you know that if you've got a venue expenses, and that they could be taken in charge. Small catering and printing for face-to-face activities, including group meetings, 500 again, education and training, and that's not really defined. But we've got 2,000, and I will talk a little bit later about how do we proceed from there. As you can see, we've got also 16,000 from Nelson City Council specifically for projects. And we've got, as Michael said, the 4,600. Most of them have been, most of this amount has been allocated to some projects because the deadline was is end of September. But if you still have a really nice projects in the Tasman area before September, just come back to us, because yeah, it's always a little bit difficult to be sure that all the money allocated will be spent. So yeah, just don't hesitate to come to us if you've got something really great before September, end of September. So yeah, we've got also 1,500 for leadership training for coordinators, not defined anymore up to now. So, and we've also provided a youth budget of 1,000. So these are the budget lines, but now we have to also define the process to have a fair and transparent way to get access to that project. So that's going to be implemented by Christina and me and the team and maybe the leadership group. But so that's, you know, that it's there, and we can create the discussion and define the process to have access to that. I'm mainly thinking about the education and training. How do we deal with that? But it's possible. That's for me.
Thank you. There's just a few minutes for questions of Michael or Marlene, if people want to ask questions, although I will have to quickly scan to pick up questions. Okay, let me just see if there are any.
It'll tell you down there.
Will it tell me? Okay.
Again,
go ahead, Marlene.
No, I will stop the sharing unless people want to have the numbers for the question, but it will be easier when I'm.
Yeah, it'll be easier to see everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully you get a sense of how the forum money is spent and what's available to people for projects small and large. Okay, I think then it's time to move on to a bit of the forum where I wanted to talk about strategic possibilities or growing edges of the forum. And let me repeat that 3 out of 4 New Zealanders report being worried by climate change. And when I talk to teachers, they tell me that lots more kids are worried about climate to the extent that it interferes with their lives. And we ourselves, the people who are gathered together here tonight, experience that action is an excellent antidote for climate anxiety. And I want to adapt the words of Tom Bailey, who's the originator of the Jump campaign. We need all action at all levels from all possible actors. So here are some growing edges and an invitation to comment, as well as a small decision to make on one of them. Now, many of you, possibly most of the people gathered here tonight, are working at full capacity on climate and biodiversity issues. For many of you, alongside full-time jobs, alongside having kids, you're giving everything you can. If you still may have a few hours of spare capacity, we can fill them productively, but better still, encourage other people to volunteer their time. I think you'll be doing them a favor as well as doing the world a favor. So, growing edges. Jump is an important big growing edge, and it'd be very good for people to give a bit of thought to what's going to work to launch this when it's ready to go. There's an active transport campaign shaping up under Jakal Upson's leadership, and that is a super important area. Where it's council's job to provide the infrastructure, but it's going to need our help to effect behavior change. And this is this is going to need person power. This needs to be an actively growing edge of our work. Adaptation is shaping up. There are several facets of adaptation. There's the infrastructure adaptation, especially coastal adaptation, mouths of rivers, and there's resilient communities adaptation, especially food security. And there's activity in both of these areas, and both of them need a lot more development. Jenny Easton, with help from Fred Overmars, both of whom are here tonight. These people are leading work in this area, and some of this work will be with councils, collaborating with council people, and some of it will be independent of councils. Other people are working on the food security aspect of adaptation, and in both cases, more person power is needed in those areas. Connect with Jenny, whose email address you can see on the adaptation group page of the website. Now, here's another really interesting one. Moving towards a more equitable society is important for climate action for several reasons. Firstly, it's the rich who emit by far the most. And I note that France has on the table a proposal to ban private jets, which is getting at the far upper end of that demographic. The poor can't afford the actions that will save energy, carbon, health, and money, like insulating one's house. A more equal society is more cohesive under stress, and it looks as if stresses are multiplying on the pathway ahead. There are in the forum a few people who are interested in working on this under the banner of the forum and climate change. Let me know if you're interested, or you know someone who would like to work on this very challenging, very interesting, very important growing edge. We have geographic growing edges. Christina mentioned Mohua 2042. That's Golden Bay's sustainability strategy. That has a few score people involved and loads of good ideas. that organization has become a forum member. And we're interested in connecting with other settlement areas in Nelson, Tasman. So if you happen to have connections that you think could be sort of enlivened in forum activities, that could be encouraged to work on climate or overshoot matters, let me or Christina know if there are ways we could bring forum activity into other areas. One of the very exciting ideas being tossed around at the moment is using a Tiriti-based citizens assembly for community consultation on climate action. This is at conversation level only at this time. We have not had a forum conversation on this topic. But it is being talked about. Let me know if you're interested in this conversation. This is one aspect. The idea of citizens assembly is one aspect of participatory deliberative democracy. Another aspect of this is known as participatory budgeting. And this is the bit that I want to invite you to make a decision on. That this process widens participation, engagement, and commitment on how an organization spends its money. The budget that you've just seen was developed in the usual way: draft from the staff, going through the treasurer, going through the finance committee, going to the leadership group, and then to you. That's the usual way of doing it. But participatory budgeting has been developed, first of all, in Brazil, Porto Alegre, and then used in cities. Paris uses it, New York City uses it, some businesses use it. It begins with having a look at those fixed expenses and then the discretionary expenses, looking at the goals, coming up with all possible ideas for funding, and then basically voting on the funding. You do that by a clever method, but everybody gets to vote on how the money is spent. This could also serve as a model for our own councils in strengthening local democracy. I would like to ask if you might approve or not approve of bringing a specific plan for a participatory budget to the forum for approval. So I'm not asking you to approve the idea of a participatory budget. I'm asking you if you would agree that we could develop a proposal about a participatory budget to put to the forum to see if we would like to move in that direction. So let me pause at that moment to invite questions or comments on just that issue, to see if you would agree to take the next step in that direction. But you will surely want to understand what it is, and so I expect you might have questions about it. So is that a question? Marie, would you like to say what you are, it looks as if it's relevant.
Okay. I'm just thinking of, I mean, first of all, on the budget side, I'm just, when the budget was, or the funding was being presented, the money that you have, it was more on, am I correct to understand it's more on who we meet, the meetings and venues and all that, but I'm not sure if there's a real concrete project that you are now reviewing. I'm not sure if it worked or not worked. I'm not sure if there was anything like that. But now going to your participatory project, I mean, what are we just coming up with projects, or are we just having some funds just in case we have some projects in our mind? How are you? Is it the chicken or the egg? Saying on this funding, are we just trying to prepare for a funding in case we got all these projects in line? because we're talking projects, I'm just something concrete. I just probably looking for something concrete. What are we, I mean, the jump, if we're going to start that, that's a concrete one. You know, understanding, because I'm not seeing any.
Okay, in the current budget, the allocation to projects was not detailed, but money was allocated to separate projects according to their budgetary needs. So that happens with every budget. I'm talking about next year, 23-24, and the proposals for projects would be part of that budgeting.
So what projects have you, because the climate forum has been going so far, and I know I haven't been like religiously on every HUI, but just checking that were there specific projects apart from the HUI and the forum that you've had, specific projects that you are now reviewing so that then you can repeat or probably not do next year? Or are we just looking for more projects? Because I see, yeah, we're budgeting for what, says ask Johnny on what Director May. What are we, because if you're just saying projects, it's too broad. Have we got something specific or concrete apart from HUI
In the past,
meeting?
in the past or in the future, are you asking?
In the past, I mean, surely there was concrete projects in the past that you are now meant to review if it's worked or not, if it was effective. And so if any effective projects that you've done that you see some measure, then you can repeat it for next year and then probably add some more creative, innovative ideas around it. I know it's yeah.
Okay. Well,
Joanna, can I briefly speak to that?
Yes, that sounds like Gemma. Is that?
Yeah,
Gemma?
It's Gemma. Sorry, yeah, it's Gemma. Murray, really great points, and I think they all reflect like a maturation and a growing up in how we do what we do. So for next year, I think for us to be able to have participatory budgeting and participatory democracy, then we do need to do that. We need to, start each financial year with a major review of, what has been done, as you said, what are the outcomes, and what was great, what do we want to build on, what do we need to just stop. So I think they're really, really good points, and I think we we need to look at that as a group for sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Gemma. Bruno.
Yes, just one question. Participate budgeting democracy. How does that protect minority groups?
I'm sorry, Bruno, I didn't hear the last sentence.
How does that protect minority groups? Have I lost? Hang on. Can you hear now?
Yep.
How does that protect minority groups? I mean, when you've got a democracy and you've got a minority group, the majority group often wins out. So how do you protect minority groups with a participatory budget?
With the people voting on it in the forum would be the forum members. In cities, I don't know how that works. We need someone who has some expertise in the area to develop a proposal and that would accomplish those ends.
Consensus.
Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, if in the case of a city that's doing participatory budgeting, of a council, you've got a certain amount of money coming in through rates, and therefore you can get a group of citizens together or whatever to do participatory budget planning. In our case, we've got some money from the council, but I'm not sure how certain that is going into the future. And also we're going to have to raise funds for specific projects from the Rata Foundation, from other sources and so on. So the income isn't as certain as it is from a council point of view. So it's, I just wonder how you do participatory budgeting, because you've got to do participatory sort of budget fundraising as well as the expense side. So somehow you've got to balance those two.
Thank you, Johnny. Do you want to voice your question?
Well, I hope not to use too much airtime, but that was going to be my question too. I think is where Maria was going was where Marie was going. Sorry, was is it budgeting for the overall climate forum operational budget and the components of that to help support that, or here's a budget we have to execute on projects, and well now the decision making would inform which projects advance and which doesn't. Is it which component is it focusing on? And then to Chris's point, is it confirmed funding or just a portion of whatever funding might come in, for example?
Right. It would be the discretionary budgeting. It would be you would look at the fixed budget, the staff salaries and the Zoom account and the website, so on. And then you would look at the discretionary part of the budgeting and look at the range of possible projects, including the sort of evaluations that Marie referred to. And that's where everyone would have their say. Okay. Now let me take us back for a second to the other growing edges that I mentioned: geographic, more equitable society, conversation about citizens' assemblies. Any comments on the other growing edges that people would like to make before we move on to the next bit of the evening? Okay, I hope I'm not missing. Oh yes, Fred has a comment. Go ahead, Fred.
Joanna, thank you. It's elections time, and I wondered whether, I'm new in the forum, but I'm thinking that now is a time that we might be looking at promoting candidates that we would like to see amongst our elected representatives in a month or two. Does that come with this session?
Yes, there are three things that the forum is doing on that. We are going to encourage people to support the NELSUST organised Meet the Candidates event in Nelson. We are a co-sponsor. This has just happened, so hasn't been announced yet. We're a co-sponsor for a mayoral candidates event in Nelson, organised by a cluster of environmental groups led, I think, by Forest and Bird, and they've invited the forum to co-sponsor this mayoral candidates event on the 20th. So that will come out in a newsletter, time and place and so on, which haven't been determined yet. That's on the 20th of September. And in Tasman, there's a series of online Meet the Candidates meetings with one mayoral event and 5 ward by ward events. We have 2 candidates here, actually, one for Nelson and one for Tasman. So you can get to know these candidates more if you go to the meetings where they're speaking. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Fred, because I would like to encourage all of the Nelson people to attend those 2 Nelson events. The NELSUST one will focus very much on transport, and the other one will probably have more of a focus on biodiversity, but I'm almost certain that they will include some climate questions. And all Tasman people, have a look for information which will come to you soon on the ward by ward Tasman online events. So thank you, Fred, for giving me an opportunity to say what we're doing in that area. Okay, we have another interesting piece of input from Gemma coming up. Gemma's going to tell us about an initiative coming out of Wakatu Corporation called the Climatorium. Over to you, Gemma.
Good koutou. So Johnny O'Donnell, who's on the call as well, he's going to lead, and I'm going to jump in pieces. So just to super briefly to say, as we're kind of running out of time, I don't think we're going to get through all that we needed to and wanted to, but we will think of ways to get the information to you and to engage a little bit more with you all on that. And Johnny and I are on the project team with Wakatu Incorporation. So the Climatorium has a project team and a working group at the moment that are looking into this, into the build out of a Climatorium and what it looks like. And I guess the reason why we're talking with you all this evening is we need to connect in and hear what you have to say and hear your questions. It might be difficult to do that tonight, but we have a couple of little techie bits that I'll share with you afterwards that will allow that engagement to come through. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get going. Let's see, screen 2. Can
Gemma,
everybody see?
You have your full 15 minutes.
Oh, I do still? Okay, great.
Yes, yes.
I thought, perfect. Okay, you guys are running like a clockwork. Okay, can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Does it say Wakatu Climatorium?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, let me go into full screen. Okay, Johnny, do you want to introduce yourself, and then we can you let me know when you want me to jump in if you do.
Ko maru e tātou, tēnā tātou katoa, e tū ana au I raro I te maru o maunga tapu, tū mai ngā awa e reri. Ka mihi ake ki a koutou I runga tahotanga o tēnei wā, no te taitokerau tēnei engari e tūpua ki au I motueka, nō reira me mihi ki te mana whenua, ngā iwi taketake o te tauihu tēnā koutou. E ki ana I kōrero o te pō, ko au te tai au, ko te tai au au. So short mihi there to introduce our session, but finishing with the whakatauki, ko au te tai au, ko te tai au au. In other words, I am nature and nature is me. And I use that whakatauki to introduce this session because right at the heart of the thinking that's been presented around this Whakatu Climatorium concept is embracing our Indigenous knowledge, Mātauranga Māori, as a formative piece of work and thinking here as a Te Tiriti-based partnership to form this Climatorium. So some of you may have a little bit of exposure to the Climatorium concept, either at an international level through the example in Denmark, which has been running for a few years now. A handful of you, I'm sure, will have been involved in the Danish delegation visit here to Te Tauihu a couple of years ago and may have learned more about the project through that time. But I guess to introduce it here, as Gemma said, we're here as part of the project team that's helping Wakatu put the plans together and design of the Climatorium, because Wakatu as a business and as a family of businesses have committed as a board and a leadership team that this is something that they would like to pursue on behalf of the region, and they see the Climatorium as a nationally and an internationally significant project. So if successful, and the plan is to push ahead with this and to pursue a Climatorium model, it would form the first Southern Hemisphere Climatorium as a international partner to the Lemvig, Denmark Climatorium, and that would begin to build on this concept of an international network of climatoriums to share knowledge, resources, information, and ultimately build a global network of climate action and centres of excellence to advance solutions. Also want to just acknowledge within this that the whakapapa goes well before Gemma and I's time. So the whakapapa of the concept, of course, is with Wakatu and their leadership around building this relationship with Denmark. There's a memorandum of understanding between Wakatu Incorporation and the Danish Climatorium to build this international partnership, and there's another delegation visit occurring next year to help strengthen that partnership as we advance this concept of a climatorium. And of course, many of you, because I recognise your faces on the screen and know many of you well, participated in the Te Tauihu intergenerational strategy, and so I put that there to acknowledge that certainly my interpretation of that strategy was it was really permission for the region to be bold, to be transformational, and to pursue things that focus and emphasize on the well-being of te taiao, of nature and the environment first, before anything else, in considerations to our regional development. And I think this project fits squarely in that, and also supporting that that need for transformational change and positioning Whakatū and Te Tauihu as a place for that. So Gemma, maybe across to the next slide, just conscious of time. Yep, so climatorium is a new word for most of us. And that's the beauty of it. I guess we're in a design phase at the moment where we're putting together the plan, model, and overall business case to advance this. The climatorium we're talking about as a living, breathing entity already, because there is activity and that partnership already exists. So we have already put our hand up to say that Te Tauihu, top of the south, wants to be that Southern Hemisphere climatorium. We want to be part of this international network, and we want to continue to build on that relationship with Denmark and the Danish climatorium. And at this stage, we're talking about the climatorium as a centre of excellence where mātauranga Māori, business, academia, community, and innovation can intersect to develop climate response projects and climate solutions. We talk about this as an existing relationship right now, but something that the vision that's being led by Whakatū is for this to be a physical space. And we kind of emphasise the importance of that physical space, because whilst forums like this are important, in our worldview, it's very hard to replace kanohi, ki te kanohi, and the ability of people to intersect and to bump and to spend time in each other's, in the same room as each other, as we work together to solve these problems. And I think if we were talking with any other group, I would spend a bit of time discussing the enormity of the challenge in front of us, and the fact that it would be unthinkable to tackle climate change any other way than doing it together. But I don't believe I need to explain all that to those of you on the call, because you're already working incredibly hard in that space. So I think it's important that whilst the vision that Whakatū has put forward and is seeking your input and engagement on is around a regionally based climatorium, that we don't see it necessarily as regionally focused. And I guess that's one of the important things to draw your attention to in terms of key differences between the kaupapa that you're working on here and the type of work the climatorium might do. The climatorium would be a space not only to house and build on existing knowledge and draw in knowledge from overseas, but it will also be a place of generating new knowledge, of bringing a mātauranga Māori approach to advance new solutions and new concepts as they do in Denmark. So I mentioned before that it's a physical space, and Gemma might want to have a walk through some of the intersections we see occurring in that space.
Yeah, I feel like the climatorium already it's a living, breathing entity, albeit at a smaller scale. But what we thought would be useful for you all to see is the ecosystem wherein it operates. So at the center is the climatorium, in 2025, 2026, the building, but around it, you can see what we have going. So we've got, core funders at the moment that are helping us take this stage to a business case to get funding. So we've got projects and events, and we'll touch on some of those. We've got partnerships, and they're quite extensive. So Denmark, EU, NCC, TDC, and then you can see within the business, academic, government, and community, and from some of the projects we'll touch on, you'll see that that we're really bringing a lot of those partnerships to life already. So that was just to give you a bit of a flavor of how it sits. So you can see that it's that it's already got tentacles out. That it's it's pretty rooted already. Mm-hmm. So I think we will. Do we have time for these, Johnny, or should we?
Yeah, we can speak to it briefly. I mean, I guess it's to say that really, really briefly, it's. This is not a kind of catch-all for climate solutions, because there's a lot of activity already occurring, and there's lots of silos that exist. And so whilst we do see this as as bringing a lot of different areas of society together to intersect in a physical space, and positioning Nelson putting Nelson in a leadership position to, as the sort of, I guess, the engine room of climate solution. We do see it at that solutions-based level. So we're hoping that this is the kind of space where it's a campus-like environment where people with an interest and a desire to bring new knowledge and generate knowledge together by thinking and growing together, to come up with ideas that can ultimately make a big transformative difference. So whilst it would be great if it could cater to as much as possible, and that's certainly part of the vision, we do see this as being targeted at big transformative ideas. And that's certainly the case in Denmark, as people can bring an idea, companies can exist and work out of the climatorium over there, where then those connections are made. So similar models that you'll see, and we've done a lot of work so far already comparing other innovation models that might exist. But I guess I raise that point because one of the questions that I came to this project with was why Wakatu, and why does it make sense for Wakatu and indeed our region to be leading in this space? But of course, the more I've immersed myself in the project, the more sense it makes, which is that, you know, Wakatu is a business that is inherently of this place and always will be, which is a real strength. It's is comfortable and can operate in a kaupapa Māori, Mautauranga Māori space, which secular organisations can't in that way, and it has that 500-year Te Pai Tawhiti vision, but also the level of positioning this as a centre of excellence and an engine room for climate solution requires a level of commercial acumen, and I'm going to use the word ambition because that certainly suits Wakatu, to get something like this off the ground. And so there's a lot to be done to get something like this activated and make it happen. But I think we have a unique opportunity here where this relationship has been formed, and Wakatu Corporation as a powerful player in the region, from both a land perspective and a capital perspective, but also from a mana whenua perspective as well, are in a position to take the lead on something like this and turn it into something of national significance. So that's kind of where we're sitting there with the overall vision and ambition. I should just mention, though, just to follow up on that, and then I'll pass over to you, Gemma, for final comments, I guess, is that this, at the moment, the project is under design, which is why we thought we'd come to you for a conversation and for input, or for the beginning of many conversations. But that the Wakatu have made it clear their commitment is that this would be a piece of civic infrastructure. So it's something that they see being owned and delivered independently. But at the moment, they are the project sponsor and have the backing of their board and their whānau to pursue this project and help get it off the ground. But that ultimately would need to be in its own operating structure and have that independence in the long run. So the project will kind of grow and evolve as we build it. Gemma.
Awesome. So I think one of the key words, I took out of what Johnny was just saying there is the ambition, and we also want to be bringing funding into the region and funding climate change response solutions. So that's wherein some of the difference lies as well, I think. So we want to be tackling, this is a little bit glib, but we do want to be thinking about money at a really ambitious scale to fund projects. And obviously, when I say we, the Climatorium is going to be the interlocutor between those businesses, academia. And when I say businesses and academia, I mean this could be businesses and academia in Denmark. The Danish Climatorium has connections that we're already hooking into, and we just want it to grow. We want it to grow more. So this is the engagement part of the evening. We probably won't have time to just to pause here and get everybody's results. But if you want to, you can get your phone, and we're all used to scanning QR codes now. So you can scan there, and then let us know. It'll take you to a page that will open up, and you'll get all of these options, and you can let us know what you would invest $2 million into. It's just a an engagement little exercise, but it's to show you really that I had $10 million there earlier. I was thinking like at really big scales, but that's where we need to be. We need to do the small and the big, and I feel like at the Climatorium we'll have a home for both of those. So I'm just going to move on to the next slide. I think we'll skip over this, John. I think you touched on quite a few things from here. And I will just briefly, in 1 minute, I think, just chat you through some of the climatorium projects that we have already off the ground. And one of the projects we've just completed, so which was our youth conference. And thanks to the forum, you helped us get a little bit more profile for this too. I'll just go back. So the key thing to say here is that the climatorium as a concept is alive and well. It's alive and well as a virtual idea. We have partnerships with the Danish climatorium, and with them, you know, we worked with students in Lemvig in Denmark and students here in Nelson to put on a youth conference. We've asked them, what does a youth conference look like, what it doesn't look like, and how we should write a program. So what we set about doing is we brought climate scientists from New Zealand and Denmark together. We brought a Cawthron scientist who interweaves Maturanga Māori with Western science. She took us through a whakapapa of the origin of the universe. It was just really, really special. You know, we talked about, you know, technology, and I think just today I saw MFE talk about digital twin cities and how Wellington is doing this digital twin exercise. Well, you know, just 2 weeks ago, we talked to Datacom about digital twin as a climate change tech response. So we also launched with Datacom that night a mentoring partnership between Datacom and the students of Denmark and the students in Nelson Tasman as well. So we're already creating and coalescing, I guess, all of these different groups, businesses, scientists, for them to come and work with us on projects. And importantly, I guess we need to really listen and elevate the voice of the student as well. So that's why I think we've started here with students as really the first mini project for the climatorium. And just a couple of insights into how did it go? Well, it was on at 8 a.m. in Denmark, and it was which was 6 p.m. here in New Zealand, and it was beamed into a lot of the schools over in Denmark. So we had over 1,000 people in attendance. And in thinking about the climatorium ecosystem earlier, you would have seen, you know, partnerships. We have a partnership with the IURC. They're all about sustainable cities, and we had a member of that EU organization present as well. He gave us the thumbs up. I thought that was pretty good. Keep going, keep doing what we're doing. So essentially, the thing to note, I think, and the thing that I want us to really get a sense of here is that we're doing good things on a small level, and we get really an indication and I guess a little bit of fire behind us to say, okay, we need to keep going, we need to do more, we need to engage, we need to bring people together. And I think, as Johnny was saying, that's what Wakatu are really, really strong at. So yeah, we feel quite privileged to be, you know, working on the project team. I'm going to leave this slide. We don't have much time. We have a summit that's going to come up. More information will come our way. And Joanna, I know you've been quite interested in the wellness metrics as well. So information is coming through, just to kind of nod to that. And oh, sorry, finally, a Wakatu chair in climate change. And again, just to show you I guess the breadth of thinking. And I mean, with Wakatu, it's always intergenerational, it's always ambitious, and it's always very collaborative and engaging. So a short run of projects and of things to come. And as the last slide, if any of you were interested, again, I have my little engagement poll. I've recently found a new tool, so I'm just like applying it to everything, so just excuse me. So you can take out your phones here as well and scan this QR code, and it'll take you to a page where you get to finish the sentence. So the climatorium is, and you get to put in a word. So maybe this word is evolving, or maybe this word is, like, for me, it's like, you know, ambitious, inspirational, or, you know, insert your own word. Or maybe you don't want to put it in now, you want to see how things evolve, and more information that comes your way, and that is all good too. So if has everybody who wants to do this got a picture of the QR code? I'm just going to go to the next slide. I can leave it up there a little bit longer.
Okay.
Yep.
We can leave it there. Thank you very much, Johnny and Gemma, for that exciting presentation. And we note that you have an event coming up in March that we'll no doubt hear more about. So thanks a lot for telling us about it. It is time to end. You'll be able to respond to Gemma by saying what you think about the climatorium, thanks to her little device. So we won't have any questions. In fact, I'll move to close now with a karakia that you're perhaps becoming familiar with. It's the one where we've been on a waka journey together, paddling in time, and we've come back to the beach and we're getting out of our waka and feeling the togetherness of our group. So that the meaning is it's the breath, it's the evening, it's the ocean, it's the power of our unity of our group, that we join together, bond together, and interweave together. Ko te hā, ko te pō, ko tangaroa, ko te mana, ko te kotahitanga o ngā māta waka. Haumi e, hui e, taiki e. Thank you very much, everyone.